Hello. So I am back. I just tried to record a video, but you know, didn't work. So now I'm gonna just go with the flow and see what happens. I am wanting to talk about relationships and boundaries and maybe celibacy. I don't know. And Mother Mary. Just kind of, I've been wanting to make a video around her energy for a while now because like I was saying before in another video, um, I would love to help Mother Mary reclaim her name because I just hate the term the Virgin Mary. And I hate that she's tied, that her body and her name and her legacy is tied to something that is so, like, soaked in the patriarchy and is just so heavily attached to, honestly, like some kind of trauma and a little bit of a violation. Whenever I heard or would hear the story about Mary and like her immaculate conception and all of that, it just, I don't know. Like, if I were her, I don't know if I would have loved that experience. And I can't obviously speak for her, but I do feel her energy present a lot recently, and I do feel like she is a guide in my life. And so, and I am nowhere, I'm not really, I don't think I'd be the first person that you would attach to the stereotypical definition or example of Mother Mary. And so I think the fact that she is a huge presence in my life is affirming of the fact that she would like to, kind of rewrite her story her own way. And if I can be a part of that, then I think that would be very beautiful because I think that she's incredible. And I think that what she went through is, I just think she deserves justice. And especially thinking about kind of my own journey right now as a spiritual person, I've been thinking about, how I would like to be of service while I'm here on earth in this incarnation, but also thinking about how I would like to change the relationship between souls and the greater spirit, the greater universe who controls the way we incarnate and the experiences we have and the trauma we take on. There's just a lot of, I don't know, careless recklessness that kind of happens in terms of the incarnation experience. And I personally don't feel like past life trauma and things like that should really be a thing. I don't really feel like we should have to carry all that energy. It just seems extremely excessive. And I just think that the way that we incarnate and how difficult it is, especially on Earth, and it's going to become more difficult as we go through climate change and unless people continue to connect with their spiritual teams, there's going to be a lot of isolation and not being able, just feeling ungrounded. And so the incarnating experience is going to be difficult for a while, and it's already been very difficult, especially here on Earth. I don't remember my other experiences incarnating anywhere else, so I can't speak to that. But the point is, life is hard. And if my understanding of the universe is correct and this whole system is anywhere near, the truth, then there's a lot that can change. And as beings, we all have the power and the right to advocate for a different way of existing. And Mother Mary fits into this because when I think about her story, and the idea of immaculate conception at such a young age, and having to lose your child all for the sake of saving the human population and like sin, and I don't know the entire story. I don't really remember, but I don't really feel like it's relevant. I think it's a ridiculous story, and while I'm grateful for whatever, I don't know if I am grateful. I just feel like it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary, and I would really love to know if the consent was even there. I don't feel like it was. Like, if God comes to you and they're like, hey, you're gonna get pregnant and give birth to this baby, and then 30 years down the line they're gonna die, like, what are you supposed to say? And then Joseph's just there, like, it's just giving violation. And I don't like that. And so I would love to open up a conversation with you all, whoever watches this video, and also with the universe in general, and just all of the beings that are up there and are listening, and just, let's just have a chat, because I feel like across the board, we can all admit that this experience and incarnating and just existing is a little bit chaotic and could probably change. We're due for some change. And, nothing just is, nothing just is what it is. Everything is created, and so everything can change and shift. And if we want a new way of existing, we can create that. Revolutions exist for a reason. New creations exist for a reason. The idea of stopping something and reimagining exists for a reason. And so I just don't believe that, some things are just like, that's just nature, nothing just is my point. So yeah, that is kind of what I want to talk about today. I don't really know how this is going to go. I thought I would do like a reading, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or if I'm going to just kind of ramble. I've been really into goddess energy recently, and I've really been wanting to connect deeper with my divine feminine energy and the great goddess. I've been kind of taking on small different projects. Like I started reading the Bible, and I was looking for the great goddess within the Bible, because it's always just God, God, God. And it's always God attached to this masculine energy, but there is clearly this, this presence of feminine energy. And if you don't like the word feminism or feminine, then, replace it with whatever you feel comfortable with. But that type of energy, what feminine energy is associated with, that type of energy, it's clearly present, and not just on a human level, but on a very powerful God-like level, goddess-like level. I also have spoken about how obviously I don't believe in gender. So I don't really believe that there's only two types of energy in terms of like divine feminine and divine masculine. I just believe that we're limited by the language that we have access to, and what like understandings and frameworks that we have access to. And so right now what we say is divine feminine and divine masculine, but I believe that it's obviously much more complex than that, and probably not just two. It's probably several things. I'd love to get out of the framework of like duality, and more into a community type of mindset. I think that imagining everything working as, several different pieces all together, creating like the function of the universe, of energy, of all of these things, makes a lot more sense to me than just like these two things, or just like this one thing. It's very hierarchical, and it doesn't really reflect reality to me. Like, I think about the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and it's just like, that's literally what it takes. But we we are always about like the two-parent home, and like and like it's just their responsibility and all of that. But you see in many different cultures, like the whole family's there, raising the baby, helping the parents, blah blah blah. My point is, community is huge, and especially on Earth, like community is a huge thing for human beings. And everything is a reflection of itself. In terms of your spirit team, you don't just have like two guides or two spiritual beings watching over you. You have a whole community. And so when I think about like spirit and like God and things like that, and energies like that, I can't just imagine that it's just one, incredibly powerful entity. I imagine that it's a community, and that's why it's so expansive and so difficult. And that's why we all have such different understandings and interpretations of what spirit is and what the universe is, because it's just so plentiful, and ever changing. So that is something that's been on my mind, and I wanted to talk about that because I'm interested in understanding more about boundaries. Oh, yeah. So I've been thinking about, oh my God, there's Mother Mary. I didn't even realize. I literally didn't even realize. That's so funny. That's so funny. Okay, so we'll keep her out. We will keep her out, and we will have her there in her presence with us, guiding us. But yeah, I wanted to talk about boundaries. I guess I want to talk about a lot of things. I just feel like there is a revolution on the horizon. Something funny is that in secrets. Maybe I'll keep that up too. Last year, during like October, I recorded a video that was meant to be from October until the end of the year, and it was like a message about restoration and revolution. And it was talking, I kept sensing that there was this portal, and that when we got out on the other side, you were really deciding which way you wanted to go. And there was a route that was giving me like a warlike energy. It was very invigorating and exciting, but it also was very, like, what's it called? Superfluous? No. I couldn't really understand what it was talking about. But I've been bringing up a lot this whole idea of us changing the way that we incarnate and all of that. Because, we've had a lot of conversations about the fact that Earth is ascending and human beings are waking up and all of that. And I guess I've been a part of that journey because I feel like this past year, 2021, has been ridiculous in terms of me just realizing things. But yeah, I've been having these realizations and I guess these awakenings that have led me to really reconsider what I think about this whole process in general. And I've been thinking a lot about like death energy and divine feminine energy and the pairing of those two. And that makes me think back to Mother Mary because she, in many senses, you could see her and think that she encompasses a lot of divine feminine energy. And she also has quite a close relationship with death, not only because of Jesus, but you just kind of think about her and like her story is so heavily attached to her son and to his death. And then also it's like we don't know who she was before she became pregnant, and I really don't know much of her story beyond who she was as a mother. So there's like the death of so much of her in order to make room for motherhood, and that's something that a lot of women face. I wrote a poem about that. Just the way that women are kind of like you're just told to lose yourself within motherhood, and there is no protection and there is no burial or sacred releasing of the woman that you were before, of your girlhood, of your independence, and your life outside of motherhood. And even when you're no longer mothering so actively, you're still a mother, and it's so heavily attached to you in the way that fatherhood is not really attached to men. And it really is like you kind of transform and take on this whole new being, and then the old you is just kind of gone, and there is no like room to grieve that. And with Mary, I really just I think about what her life must have been like, and I imagine that there was just such an intimacy with death, and I do wonder if having that closeness was actually maybe therapeutic and was helpful in allowing her to heal continuously as she journeyed through her life. Because it was almost like was her life even her own? It was, I don't know, I feel a lot of injustice, but I also feel like she was being held by the great goddess during her lifetime. And I feel like she was becoming familiar with death in a way that would protect her from just how cruel, her experience really was. And I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about the universe and Earth, and we're going through climate change right now, and we are constantly in conversation with death wherever we go. You turn on the news, you always hear, somebody's been shot down the block, or, there's an earthquake, there's a hurricane, there's a tsunami, there's starvation here, devastation here, war here. Death is a constant when you're here on Earth. And there is no grieving process for that. There's like no space for people to kind of process all of that trauma. And we are just kind of becoming very familiar with it and almost numb to it, but not in a healthy way. It kind of reminds me of the burnout that I and many people experienced during like the 2014, 2015, 2013 era of Black Lives Matter, when, it was just like, it felt like day after day, there was literally a new person every single day. And then, like, I feel like by the time like we got to Sandra Bland, it was just like, it was so numbing and so painful. And at such a young age, you just began to understand just what it really was. And my sister was telling me this a few weeks ago, but because we were talking about, I'm Caribbean, and our family has a habit of being very doom and gloom. And we just kind of just talk about trauma all the time, and it's very isolating and it's very kind of suffocating. But my sister was telling me that maybe that is because it's like a generational thing because of slavery, because in Jamaica at least, slavery was happening for, I don't know, centuries, and that really was the reality. Like, just doom and gloom, darkness, death was the reality. There was no, glass half full. I mean, you could find it, but there wasn't really. And there was no, oh, let's talk about something lighter and better. That was just like everyday small talk was like the trauma. And so that's something that we're still carrying today, and especially in my family, and I know probably in a lot of Caribbean families and in a lot of Black families, and honestly in probably like any family where there's like deep historical, systemic like violence and generational trauma because of like colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy, things like that. The trauma is just it feels so innate and it feels so natural to our being that it's just what we talk about, and it's just how we exist in the world. And so you're just so closely linked to death, but not in a way that is healing, but in a way that is isolating and suffocating and kind of detaches you from your body and from your present reality and from your understanding of life and understanding how to navigate life in a way where you are able to get the most out of it and not look at death as, a burden or like an escape hole and into heaven where all your fears are going to be gone. And I even think that like the idea of heaven is kind of cruel at this point, because I know so many Black people are believe in that and believe that that is going to be, the end all be all and the escape, and you're going to be living, the high life. But if you're reincarnating again, oh my God, and you're carrying all that trauma from your current life that you just weren't dealing with because you were like, oh, well, I'm going to go to heaven. And like, it's just cruel. And so I just have a lot of problems. I mean, maybe I have a lot of problems with religion in general and like the people who are powerful within those institutions, because they're just allowing people to, have this fantasy of something that's just not going to happen. I mean, who am I to say? But from my perspective, I don't believe it's going to happen in terms of, it's just heaven and then that's it. And I also don't believe in hell, so, it goes both ways, but I just believe you keep reincarnating until, I don't really know. I don't really know what comes after that. I do believe in reincarnation, though. That's as much as I know at this point. But yeah, I just think that there is an important conversation that we need to begin having about fixing our relationship with death and like darkness and that type of energy, because it's not going away anytime soon and we're going to become more and more familiar with it. And I would like to live in a society where we can talk about that and be comfortable with the reality of that being close to us and being in our homes, and not be fearful, and not feel helpless, because that just sucks. And I want to have children and I don't want that to be their reality. So that's been something that I've been thinking about recently. And I do think that I've become more intimately connected with death energy and darkness over the past year. And oh, well, maybe that's how I connect it to relationships. So I was thinking, because I was watching a bunch of videos on, why older men are attracted to younger women and blah, blah, blah. And Monica Hernandez made a really great video about that. And I think she said something about like them wanting to like leave their mark on you and something like that. And I was thinking about my own experience and my own trauma. And I was thinking about, I am a survivor, and I recently have over the past few months, I've just become very comfortable with like with darkness in a way that has been freeing and kind of liberating. And I've been trying to become more comfortable with boundaries and with, saying no. And I do that makes me think of Mother Mary, because, I do wonder what would have happened if she felt safe enough to say no to God. And, just how different life would be for a lot of people if no was something that was taught as a very positive and empowering phrase, rather than, so heavily attached to the negative. Because I know that it's a negative, as in no, but we attach it to negativity, and we're always like, the year of yes, say yes to your life, blah, blah, blah. And it even happens to me all the time. I shuffle my deck, and if I ever see no, like the no card in my oracle deck, I like, I get like what's it called? I don't know what I'm trying to say. But I like freeze up, and I hate it, because I feel triggered, because I'm like, oh, a blockage, a barrier, blah, blah, blah. But, no is not a negative word, and it is an empowering and a very important word. It needs to exist, and I think that more of us need to become comfortable with the word no and with saying no. That's another thing that Monica Hernandez was saying in her video. She was saying that she was the bearer of no. And I was like, yes, that's something I really want to become comfortable with. And I guess I thought I would come on here and talk about that a little bit, because she was talking, I think, to like late teens and like early 20-year-old women, and just talking about, the naiveness and the lack of boundaries that a lot of us have. And I've been noticing that a lot, and I've been trying to work on that. And I don't think I'm anywhere near, just, a grown woman with all my boundaries and self-love and self-care and self-respect to the moon. But I do feel like I am heading down the road and I'm starting to get more comfortable, and being more comfortable in my body, and being more comfortable expressing my sexuality and expressing my desires, but also, but doing that in tangent with expressing my boundaries as well, and understanding the word no. And that's why I wanted to talk about celibacy, because after kind of waking up to the fact that I had been violated, I haven't had any type of sexual experience since. And I have been trying to kind of fix my relationship with physical touch because that's something that I think I'm kind of traumatized by, and not just because of that experience, but I think it like goes all the way back to childhood. And it's actually not because I was violated as a child, but because I didn't really receive a lot of physical affection as a child, and so I was very like closed off, and I became at a very young age just like the type of person who didn't like to give hugs, didn't like to hold people's hand, and I only associated physical touch with sexual intimacy, and so that's the only place where I would feel comfortable exploring that. Like I didn't have an aversion to physical affection. I just didn't like I didn't do it with my friends, and I didn't do that with my sisters. I was just very, guarded and blocked, and it's not healthy because then I would be like over what's it called, extending and just giving too much, too gracious with my physical body when it came to relationships or anything close to a relationship, um, because that's where I was getting my physical affection. Um, and it really sucked when I had that realization because there's a lot of things I wish I could kind of just go back and not do, but it is what it is. But yeah, I was thinking about that and my lack of boundaries as a young person, and the fact that I just wish I would love for other young people to avoid the mistakes that I've made, and I'd love to have a conversation that is a little bit more open about sexuality and what it means to be sexually free and sexually liberated, but also make sure that you're protecting yourself. Like the hot girl summer and all of that is something that's been pretty big recently. And I've even been one to be like, I want to be a hot girl. I want to have my whole summer. But then I really think about it and I'm like, do I actually want to do that? Because, what are the chances that I'm going to have a physical experience with somebody and it's going to be pleasurable? The chances are like zero. At least like with like a one night stand or something casual, the chances are looking slim. And especially if you're not somebody, and that's another thing, because people with vulvas, and is vulva the same as, yeah, people with vulvas are not, taught enough about what it takes to receive sexual pleasure. Many of us don't really have a full understanding of like orgasms and feeling good and feeling comfortable and like foreplay and all of these things that lead up and make sure that you are having a good time. And so, being so, I just, I just, as much as I love the idea and the concept around hot girl summer and ho summer and just being free, and I do think that you should do whatever you want with your body at the end of the day. I do think that we need to be a little bit more honest with women and with folks about what the experience really entails. And I think a lot of us need to be a little bit more honest about the regret that some of us feel, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself. So I just, I would like to be more honest about that because it would have been nice to be, like 18 and coming into college or into that era of your life and exploring relationships and have somebody be honest about, what, I actually wish I didn't, do all of these things because it just wasn't worth it. And it doesn't mean you have to have regrets about your life, but just being honest and saying, I didn't need to do that. It didn't benefit me, didn't give me anything, and I actually didn't like gain much. Like I could have learned the lesson just through conversation with other people rather than through physical experience and then the trauma that goes with that and the discomfort around your body and not understanding your own pleasure, you know? Um, and I think back to Mother Mary because, she had the experience of labor and birthing and conception and pregnancy, and she didn't have the experience of sex. And she's always been coined as this Virgin Mary. And there is just like a lack of pleasure. And it's almost like she's not like pleasure is something that is sinful. And she's pure because she didn't experience pleasure and she didn't explore that part of her body. And it's something that is so, it's a human right, in my opinion, to experience pleasure. That's why I don't know the term. I don't remember the term, but there's a lot of people with vulvas in the world who's like they experience like mutilation around that area of their body to remove pleasure, because that is something that's really significant and important to the human experience and understanding, what you're deserving of, um, and feeling good. And I guess I just think that all of these conversations are connected somehow. Um, how, I'm not sure yet, but I do feel like they're connected. And I do wish that we would talk a little bit more about like the actual like energetic effect that like sex has on your life and the power that orgasms hold, especially when it like in terms of like sexual magic and spirituality, and because you're like ascending to, you're like low-key ascending to another level just for like a minute, even if it's just that short, and you're experiencing like a level of joy and release that is spiritual. It's one of the few human experiences that, for some people, is like a regular human experience that is also extremely spiritual. That like almost every human can experience, regardless of what your beliefs are. Like it's just a spiritual experience, and it's also just a human experience. So it's not like it's deprived from some communities, but obviously it is, because not everybody gets an orgasm because we're not taught about pleasure correctly. But it's one of those experiences that is both human and spiritual. I mean, all human experiences, I guess, are spiritual, but you know what I mean. It's a really, really great gateway to understanding more about who you are as a spiritual being, your orgasms, and just pleasure and sex in general. That's why I do understand why people are like, it's sacred. If you don't consider it that important to you, that's totally okay. If you're not even a sexual person, that's totally okay. Because I don't fully understand, like I don't fully know all about asexuality, but I know that not everybody is comfortable with sex that way or even desires it in that way. But like orgasms and that type of energy is not just connected to sex. You can have it, that can happen in many other ways. So what I just mean is that type of pleasure is a release that is spiritual and is really fundamental to understanding more about your body and your human experience. And it's also one of those experiences that really ties your body to your spirituality. So it's such a beautiful gateway. And it's something that so many women and people with vulvas are deprived of. And I do think it's obviously intentional, but I even think like on a like systemic level, it's intentional. And so when I think about like Mother Mary, and the idea, I don't know much. I don't know what her like sex life was like. I don't know if she was actually a virgin or if she like had sex and had other children. I think Jesus had other siblings. I really don't know. I really don't know. But I just think it's disgusting that, you know, any religious institution thinks that they have the right to try and control her narrative. And it's interesting because in the Monica Hernandez video, she's bringing up all the Marys, and she's talking about Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene, funny enough, is also a figure that has always kind of been present in my life, but not like in a spiritually guiding way, or maybe. But she just always kind of makes it into like the stories that I would write as a kid. She was always, her name was always like a story, a character name in my, in the stories I'd write as like a preteen and a teenager. I just really love her name. But I guess I was also channeling her energy because she was always kind of filling the role, like the Lilith role, or like the role of somebody who is just outside of the accepted society. And she's always like an independent woman. I really love her energy. I don't know much about her actual story, but I do think that she's pretty cool, just based off of what I do understand. And what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the comparison between her and Mother Mary, because they're both Marys, but she was a sex worker, I believe. I don't know. And Mother Mary was, I don't know, Jesus' mom, a saint, a charity person. I really don't know what jobs Mother Mary did. I just know that she gave a lot, and she received like not enough in return. But I'm just shuffling my deck right now. Yeah, she did kind of just adapt to all ends of the earth. It's even crazy that like Jesus is Jesus is often seen as God. Like sometimes they're said in tandem, something like that. They're what's it called? You can say either like Jesus or God. It's either one. For I think Catholics, I think that's what it is. But for Mary, like she's sometimes referred to as the mother of God, but she's never like referred to as like a goddess, you know? And that's interesting because they're always like, God doesn't have a mom or God doesn't have parents. I do feel like it makes sense to me that Mother Mary would be connected to like the great goddess and that type of energy. That does make sense to me. It just does kind of break my heart and it makes me upset because I don't really know if I'll ever be able to do her justice. And I even feel like in telling all of these stories and saying all these things, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm even saying anything that makes sense. But I just know in my heart, and I'm sure that a lot of other people feel the same way, that like, you know, she was done an injustice, and a lot of goddesses and their energy is, you know, done, treated with injustice, and at least within like the Western world, they're just kind of erased, and at least within like Western spirituality, not spirituality, but like religion, and even I think within some parts of spirituality, it's just like it's not given as the same value, and it's upsetting because you know, divine feminine energy, that type of energy, and the great goddess and like her energy contributes so much to, you know, the way that we survive, and not only survive but just like are able to live and live with joy and live with peace, and you know, like the small pleasures, like that is the great goddess. She kind of, you know, brings you small miracles all the time. I even think of like Yamaya, who I think is one of the Orishas, and like I remember hearing another YouTuber, I can't remember her name right now, but she was saying that, you know, a story that is often told with Yamaya is that she went with her children, with Black people, through through like the Middle Passage and through slavery, and she is like I think she's a goddess that like rules over the oceans and things like that, and like over, I think like over birth and creation. I might be wrong. But yeah, like goddess energy is so overlooked, and I think it's so heavily tied. It's always so heavily tied to mother energy, which I understand, but just because, you know, mothers are already just so, I feel like dehumanized. And like you think about like after a woman gives birth, nobody cares about her postpartum process, even though it's incredibly difficult. And it lasts for months. It could last for years. And the pregnancy alone is hard enough, but like postpartum is traumatizing. That's whenever I watch videos on YouTube, like of people who have just given birth, they're always like, you know, labor was hard, but postpartum was hell. And you know, there's no support, and it's because like you're nothing after you deliver the child, you know. And that's just kind of how it feels like. Goddess energy is just kind of always neglected, and I think that's probably why I feel such a connection to trying to bring some type of justice. And I think all of these conversations that I'm bringing up are tied to goddess energy, in terms of like the death and it doesn't have to be celibacy, but just, a little bit more of a deeper and more complex understanding of sexuality for vulva owners and anybody who's like more heavily in their feminine energy, because I do think that we tend to be mistreated. Oh, um, yeah, my neck hurts. It's because I have been shuffling cards and all that. I need to relax. But yeah, I think for now, here's Lilith. Yeah, I think for now I will go. I'm gonna like lay down and eat some more pasta. But I'm glad I got to record this video even a little bit. And I'm going to continue to try and do my goddess work and learn more about the goddesses and share their story because it's important. And share Mother Mary's story through a different lens because I think that's important. I would love to bring her some type of justice. So yeah, that is all for today. And I don't know if I'm going to end up posting this. I'll have to rewatch it and see if I made any sense. But if I did, then maybe I will post it. So have a great day if you are watching this and I do post it. And thanks for being here. Hello. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm doing the dishes. I was listening back to the video that I just recorded, and something that just came to mind to me because I was talking about Mother Mary and motherhood and how she experienced, like, she has such a close relationship with death because she went through so many death processes because she, was the Mother Mary, gave birth to Jesus, had that whole thing be her storyline. And it made me think about, this is just my nose ring. I'm just gonna push it in. It made me think about, or like the sin or the curse punishment that was given to Eve and then all of the women that followed her, or all the people with vulvas and give birth that followed her after she ate the apple and after her and Adam were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And thinking about like the way that the birthing process goes for so many people in this world and how it leads, how so many people die giving birth, and how so many, especially Black women, experience trauma in like within the medical industry, but especially like Black mothers while in labor. A lot of them pass away because of neglect and just the experience that a lot of vulva bearing people, their experience with birth is so traumatizing. And I was thinking about because I follow a lot of YouTube moms whose birthing experience they've kind of documented and talked about, like orgasmic births and just like more intention and more power being given back to the mothers or the people giving birth during their labor experience. And I've been thinking about becoming a doula, and both a birthing doula but also a postpartum doula. I kind of talk about postpartum in this video, but I was thinking about part of like the revolution that I think we need to have within this era is, and something I would like to be a part of, I guess, during my time on Earth, is kind of changing the birthing experience. I don't think that we deserve to have a traumatic experience while giving birth. I understand that it's painful, and I don't know if you can ever really rid, the pain fully, but I do think that there's a different way to experience labor and to experience bringing life into this world. And I do feel like, our birthing experience is heavily, directed by the patriarchy, and especially and by white supremacy within like the Western world. If you're in hospitals like that, and if you follow that structure and standard, there's just like no rights given to the mothers, or the people giving birth. There's no rights. In hospitals, there's a lot of violations, and it's just an extremely traumatizing experience. Yeah, and that was just something that came to mind because I was thinking about, I was thinking about motherhood and like how so much of vulva bearing people who choose to have children, like their purpose is, based on their children and based on the life that they bring into this world. It's very hard to create a detachment from that. And, like once you have children, you're just so, your whole identity is so connected to that experience. But it's not like you receive any type of healing space for like the trauma that you experience during labor and during your postpartum, and even like in terms of grieving the life that you had before then. Um, I just feel like there needs to be a revolution around the birthing process, and there needs to be more power handed back to um, people who give birth and people who are in labor. There needs to be more. They need to be in more control. And when I was thinking about like restructuring and reframing, reimagining um, the way we incarnate, I think that also has everything to do with reimagining the way that we experience labor and we give birth. Something that I was talking about in another video is that I remember, I think I was watching Lexi the Lion, and she was talking about Lemuria, and she was talking about how she didn't, I think, she was saying how, like, while incarnating on Lemuria, like your physical presence wasn't the same as it is now. And that's because we were at like a different ascension level. I don't know. Either way, I think about how strongly like pain and suffering and trauma is tied to like the women's experience or the vulva bearing person's experience, and especially just like the feminine experience because of birth. But we know that there's so much more value and it's so much more complex, and like the birthing process is so much more complex than that, because there are incarnations where we didn't have this type of physical body, so there wasn't that type of labor being experienced. Like giving birth was a different type of, it wasn't the same, you know what I mean? So there wasn't that trauma, and there wasn't that not violation, but you do, like, people who give birth do just kind of release a lot of their autonomy over their body in that moment. And I don't think it has to be that way, and I don't think it should be that way. That's something that just came to mind. And I was thinking about Mother Mary, because I was like, she had to go through the birthing process, but she didn't even get to know her body, and especially that region of her body, intimately before then, because she didn't, or they say that she hadn't even had sex, and she was like 14. So like, what understanding do you even get to have of your body before you attach it to motherhood? Like there was no independence, there was no separation between who Mary is versus Mother Mary. You know what I mean? It's like she can't even, like, who is just Mary? Even Mother Mary just I feel like I need to find a new name. Maybe I'll just call her Mary. But yeah, so that was something that came up, and I just thought I would make note, and I guess I'll add it into this video. Oh, hello. Oh, I just wanted to come back because I was listening to the video I had just recorded, and I wanted to add more to my message. So I was thinking about like disassociation, because I was thinking about like the idea of being held by the great goddess, and I was thinking about Mother Mary, and I was thinking about depression and darkness, and like the idea that everything, there's a need for no and that type of energy, boundaries, and removing yourself, releasing yourself from a certain situation, closing down, shutting down. There's a need for that type of energy, and I've been getting the deep replenishment card a lot from my Work Your Light tarot. That's been coming out a lot, and the Hermit has been coming out a lot for other people, and I was thinking about the process of like what an awakening feels like, or like a spiritual awakening. And for me, it's felt very exhausting and draining, and like depression. It's felt like I have depression, and I probably do have some depression. Um, and it hasn't been easy, but it hasn't been painful. It's been difficult, but it hasn't been painful, and it doesn't feel traumatic. And so I was thinking about that experience because I was like, I feel like I think I have depression, and I think that I am, I'm very exhausted. I'm burnt out. I feel like I'm like, there's like been some shutdowns at some points, but it's not a traumatic experience, at least for me. And that is because I've been able to I've been getting more comfortable with being kind of surrendering to the experience and being in the flow with the experience and kind of just letting myself be taken where I'm taken. And that it's a privileged experience because I don't know what other people's experiences are like, and I don't know how difficult it is for other people. But I was thinking about what that process is like, and I was thinking about comparing it to death because I do feel like I have gone through a few like death rebirth moments, and I wanted to kind of talk about how like the divine feminine takes role or takes like how that energy plays its role in the process of darkness, in the process of death, and how important that experience is. I was thinking about disassociation in relation to slavery, and especially in relation to the experience of enslaved Black women, and especially, disassociation from your body because of what was happening to their bodies, and the lack of autonomy and the violations that were occurring consistently with no control, and the children that were being taken, and the just complete disregard of their humanity. And it was felt so strongly through the body. And for all enslaved people, the violence that you were experiencing. And then I think about being a survivor and like the disassociation that happens, for some people during the experience, and for some people in the aftermath. And I was thinking about why that experience happens, and where that energy comes from, and how it could possibly be used as like, I mean, it is protective, it's a protective instinct, but I was thinking about how that could be used in kind of like a warlike state, because that to me is the divine feminine stepping in. I think that it's strange because though feminine energy is so heavily connected or correlated with emotions and blah blah blah, here on earth, people with vulvas, and people who are attached to femininity or have a more visibly presenting feminine essence. I don't know. Sorry, I'm struggling with my words today, but I think it's Mercury retrograde. But people who are more closely connected to feminine energy, in whatever way you see that, again, try and remove gender from it because that's not what I mean. And if I use gender terms, it's just my brain. I can't always correct myself. I forget. But yeah, we tend to experience the physical world in the most violent ways, honestly. Whether that's through the laboring experience, whether that's through sexual violence, whether that's through objectification, exploitation in whatever form you want to call it, on the media, just walking down the street, trafficking, our bodies, the bodies that are where there's a lot of noticeable feminine energy attached to it, and that includes regardless of how you identify. um, you experience the physical world very heavily and in a way that is very painful. And I was just thinking about that because I was thinking about back to Adam and Eve and like what was the punishment that Adam was given. And it was like working the fields and like, having to labor and toil. And there was a lot of emphasis on the physical body. Um, or at least that's what I understood. Um, but then I'm looking at reality today, and so Eve's punishment has carried on, but then I feel like, you know, the punishment around Adam's was also just inherently given to like Eve and her descendants as well, and people with that energy very strongly within them as well. Um, and so I was thinking about how disassociation might be like the divine feminine and the great goddesses' attempt at protection um, from, the experience of the physical, the violence of the physical world, the violence perpetuated through, um, you know, toxic masculinity, not, masculinity just in its own, because masculinity in its own right is not toxic, but the toxic version of that, the violence that creates around the physical world. Um, and so that's why disassociation is something that I think a lot of people experience, because you want to be taken out of your body because your body, like, you're just being beaten, basically. Um, and it's like a survival mechanism. Um, and I was thinking about, because I was thinking about Mother Mary, and I had said that I feel like death held her for most of her life, and I wonder if she experienced, a lot of disassociation and depression during her lifetime, because considering her circumstances and also just the era that she was born in, it wouldn't be surprising. It would not be surprising at all. And I was wondering if that was just one of the protective things that the divine feminine took on. And obviously it's a traumatic experience because it's important to be in your body. It's important to be grounded in your body, because when you're not, you can end up, getting lost and being in dangerous situations because you're not fully connected. So it's not a great experience. But I do wonder if there is something to like the root of disassociation that could be utilized as a as a protective, like almost like weapon, but not weapon in a like violent sense, but weapon in a protective sense, um, for people and vulnerable people. That's something I was thinking about, because in Lemuria it was a very telepathic community, and so I'm even thinking like Lyra, like you could feel what other people were feeling, and it was like what was happening to other people. There was like a connection that um, transcended the body, and it was powerful and it was important and it linked communities. You were able to communicate that way, and what comes along with ascension, I do wonder if we experience like a bit of ascension, or the idea of ascension, while disassociating. I kind of connect it to like the same thing as what you experience kind of when you're orgasming. And when you're orgasming, you're not disconnected from your body, but it does feel like almost like an out of body experience, in terms of it's like you're connecting to something else. So it's not just the body. You know what I mean? It's like spiritual, like what I was saying, and it's emotional, mental. It's like all things connected. So I was wondering, because I was talking about how orgasmic energy is something that is valuable and extremely important, and something that is deprived, that we are deprived of. Um, all people are really deprived of being able to live in that energy fully in the way that we deserve, but especially vulnerable people, vulva wearing people, bearing people. Um, and so I'm wondering if there is some type of connection between like disassociation, the divine feminine, and like death energy and orgasmic energy, in terms of like a weapon that can be used to like protect our communities from, like, I don't know, oppressive forces, especially as we go deeper into this time and we're more disconnected from each other because of, we might be staying inside a lot with climate change, and we might be on technology a lot, and so we're not going to be in our physical bodies a lot, physical bodies connecting with each other a lot. I can't predict the future, so I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I do imagine that depression is going to be a thing, a prominent thing, and disassociation is going to be a prominent thing. And it's been a prominent thing that we've all been experiencing, throughout human history, but we talk about it a lot today. We talk about mental health a lot today, and I can't help but wonder if that conversation, if there is something a little bit deeper beneath the surface that is kind of trying to hint at something that could be used as used in our favor. Black people are constantly seen as like resilient and very strong, and Black women are always given the strong and the blah blah blah. But that's because we're traumatized, and we kind of we shouldn't have to be that way, and we shouldn't have to exist in that route. But I do think that there is something to say because we've had such an intimate experience with death, energy, and darkness, and it is very familiar in our bodies, and that type of disassociation is very familiar in our bodies. I do feel like we understand how to navigate a certain type of suffocating energy or oppressive energy, and how to combat it, and how to utilize, suffering into like a gift. And it's kind of what every vulva-bearing person who gives birth does. You take suffering and you create life out of it. And that's why, you can have a birthing experience that's actually orgasmic, and that actually, even though it's painful, it's also something magical and spiritual, and it doesn't have to be traumatic. And there is a type of, like, the divine feminine can come in and, suppress certain things. Like, I hear a lot of people who give birth say that, you don't really remember it, the birth, like in terms of how traumatic it was. Some people do. Some people do remember it. But some people say that they don't. So there are ways to experience. I'm just trying to say that, like, I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice by pushing away darkness, and I think that it's actually our like best. I think it's our best gift, and it's something that can be used in order to like combat all of these like higher, like, hierarchical powers, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I hope I'm making sense. I don't know. It was like a thought I was having while I was doing the dishes and listening to what I was saying. What I was saying in that other video. And it's something that kept coming through. So yeah. If something else comes up, then I will add it, but I'm going to add this to that video. I don't know where I'll put it in, but yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm back. I'm back because I'm building on my idea. So I'm thinking about war, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not war in like a scary sense, but just, a little bit of just, the battle that we might be heading into. And I'm thinking about disassociation in our bodies, because I don't want to ever make it seem like I don't think that your physical body is important. I think your physical body is so important. But there's a lot of like brutality that our physical bodies are taking on right now. And like part of that self-love that I'm trying to work on is I'm trying to understand how to balance things out so that it's not always in the physical. And it's like just like, how like people are like, if you eat better, then you'll feel better, then your body will feel better, blah, blah. Like, it all goes together. We can protect ourselves. We can protect the several layers of ourselves. And I'm thinking about how spirituality and like being able to understand that there is there is more to you than just your physical and just your mind. That there is something spiritual and something higher that you can kind of tap into, so that it doesn't have to be all the pressure right here. I'm kind of thinking about like and building a better communication level, because I feel like right now, like I'm sensing it like my body, and then like my mind, and then like my spirit. And I'm wondering if you're able to create like a bridge between like your body, your mind, and your spirit, then because we can handle different things at different levels. So you can take some of the pressure off of your body with disassociation, bear with me, but in a way that is yeah, you can take some of the pressure off of your body and like allow your spirit to kind of delegate, but you're not disconnected from your body, because you've built that bridge with any type of spirituality, however you take that. It's whatever it means to you, whatever makes you feel connected to all of the versions of yourself, all of the parts of yourself, you know. But yeah, that's how I'm imagining disassociation in a way that isn't traumatizing. Because, like I said, my spiritual awakening experience has been exhausting, and it's been physical and emotional and all of that, but it hasn't been traumatizing. But it hasn't been like, you know, beautiful and I feel so light and happy and jumpy and like, no, nothing like that. But I'm not traumatized, and um, I'm not depressed in a way that I've been depressed before, which means I know that there's different ways to experience depression, and there's different ways to experience disassociation, and they're not all bad or negative. Obviously, I've been trying to work on finding different ways to understand those terms, so that, because I want to understand darkness more, and I want to um, change my understandings around, like, yeah, anyways, but yeah, that's just something I was thinking about. Because, you know, if you're thinking about all of the different parts of you, like, we are multi-dimensional souls or spirits, right? So that's what I believe. So I can believe that there's like, I'm working with different, I kind of imagine it as like working with different like spirits or souls when you're working with yourself or working with your own body. And it's all still you, because you're all one and you're all connected, but it is different. But it is still, there's differences. So, like, being able to tap into that, I'm just saying higher because like above, but it's not higher as in hierarchical, but like that higher version, or like where it's your spirit, or like maybe it's around you like this, I don't know, maybe it's behind you. It's the same thing with tapping into your shadow. Your shadow is very important right now in this way that we exist. Your shadow carries a lot of energy for you that you can't really carry, and you can't, like, you, I mean, maybe you can constantly be transmuting, but I do think there's a benefit to the shadow, just like there's a benefit to the ego. There's all of these different parts of ourselves, and if we can balance it out and tap into everything so that we're connected, then like, it is a type of disassociation, because you are taking yourself out of just fully only in your body, but it's not, it's empowering rather than disempowering, and it leads you out. I think it will allow us to understand ourselves and each other better, and like, it's a way to network, or not network, but like plan, organize, without, you know, being influenced by, or being limited by the powers that be on this planet that are trying to control us. um, that's just something I'm thinking of. I don't really know how they're trying to control us fully, but I do think that there is a specific effort to make you not want to be in your body, but also make you not want to be in your head. So then, like, where are you going? Because there's already such a detachment from your heart. So it's like, where are we going? So we're going into our shadow, but our shadow's like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, that's why shadow work is a huge thing right now, and we're all just trying to heal, because it's like, I'm tired. But, you know, there's just such an effort to disconnect everything. and just like a full like shutdown. And I feel like it's like an exploitation of death and an exploitation and a violation of divine feminine energy and darkness. Because darkness and death and divine feminine, which I all see as like together, those are not naturally, they're not bad. You know what I mean? But like I feel like the toxic powers that be, and it's the same thing like a manipulation of divine masculine too. So I won't even say toxic masculinity. I'll just say like there's a toxic energy that is manipulative and needs some healing. That is trying to, you know, force us to experience like a shutdown and a darkness and a death in a way that's not like reflective of what the death experience actually is and what it actually can be. And it's you know, making people want to like live forever almost, or just keep going and just deal with these experiences, because it's like, well, I don't want to experience the death of this, or like you know, what comes after it, because you think death is going to be something horrible and traumatizing. And I don't really mean like death, but I just mean like a certain type of darkness that feels never ending, a certain type of misery, like a depression. And so many people are already depressed anyways, but it's you know, it's a manipulation. It's not, there's a different way to experience these things, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's like a type of like battle gear, and we can like ignite all of the different parts of ourselves, and it can be very powerful. You know, like if we were, because I'm not going to say being in your physical body and being able to understand the world through physicality is not important. Obviously it is. Obviously it is. You know, in every sense of the way, whether you're connecting it to divine feminine or masculine or any of that. I really wish I had a different term, because it's so ingrained in my head that it's connected to gender, that I just struggle to make sure I can bring my idea, I can make it bigger than that. It's hard to make it bigger than that because it's so ingrained in my head. But I do believe it's bigger than that. So just in case it comes across like I don't, that's not what I mean. But anyways, yeah, I do believe that like divine masculine energy, that type of energy is very important. And so, but there's like an overemphasis on it right now, and it's like overheating. It's just too much. And then there's like a lot of pressure being put on the shadow, and like there's a lot of neglect of the divine feminine, but also there's an overuse, because a lot of us are like emotional and in our heads, and like, you know, in deep depression and deep darkness that's not balanced. There's not enough balance of everything. And so that's like it's a problem. But I'm thinking like about Lemuria and Lyra, and places that, you know, were heavily divine feminine, heavily led or guided by divine feminine energy, from my own personal understanding of what I know right now, which, you know, I know what I know and I don't know a lot, I'm sure. But I think if we were able to have had more of a balance with all of the several understandings of divine masculine energy, then, you know, we would have been, there would be a better preparation for attack. Because, you know, unfortunately, we just don't live in a place that is just like peace and rainbows and butterflies, and it's just like not everybody just cares about everybody, and and about, you know, just having peace on earth, and like, you know, let's all just vibe. That's just not the reality. It just isn't what it is. Every type of energy exists, and so we need to, like, we've learned from our mistakes, or we need to learn from our mistakes and be better prepared. And a better way to be prepared is to have this shield by igniting all of the different parts of ourselves and having that as a weapon, so that we can communicate in different ways all at the same time. It's like multitasking, but like organizing on several different levels, organizing on our body level, organizing like heart emotional level, organizing mental level, organizing like spiritual level, and like having everybody's back, having like creating this like intertwined like network, you know, like a spider web. It's kind of what I'm thinking, but like, so that it's just like you can't break through some type of defense wall. And it's just kind of what I'm thinking, so that we can kind of all lift each other up. That's kind of how I'm imagining things could be better for us. So yeah, because I don't want to, what's it called? Like, no and boundaries are very important. I'm looking at this card, Protection Guardian, drop your shields. I say don't drop your shield. I say don't drop your shield. I say be defensive. You know, there is a power to these energies, and I think that we, like, you know, those energies are not toxic, and it's just about the way we understand them and the way that we use them. You know, I think that there is a bit of turning your nose up at some masculine energy that's actually very important and is actually very helpful and relevant. And if we were able to balance that out with the several understandings of divine masculine, feminine energy, then we would be able to protect ourselves better. And we do need to protect ourselves, you know. Yes, we are all loved and cared for, inherently protected, but like, we're living in a very difficult universe. I'm sure that, you know, spirit loves and cares for us, but, you know, everybody, if we are all one and, you know, we are all coming from the same source, then you're bound to fight with each other. You're your own biggest critic. So there is a type of battle that needs to be had, and we need to make sure that we're prepared for that and understand that, you know, we're not just going to be like, you know, what is protection? Because you say everybody's protected, but some people experience this world in an incredibly cruel way that really just doesn't make sense. And, you know, you could say past life energy, but like, what the hell? Like, what is that? It's just ridiculous. It really doesn't make sense. And there is a better way. I do believe that there's a better way, but we have to fight for it. And fighting is not always bad. Fighting gets you change sometimes, okay? So, you know, there's just levels to everything. Everything is complex, you know. Nothing is just one thing and it's just bad and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. I definitely was rambling, but that's just something I wanted to get out. So, yeah.